What if learning AI today turns out to be one of the most important career decisions you ever make, or one of the biggest distractions of your life? Nobody can answer that question for you. Not the influencers promising overnight success, not the skeptics insisting it's all hype. The only way to know is to imagine what actually happens when an ordinary person decides to stop watching the conversation and step into it. So let's follow that journey, not the fantasy version, but the one that unfolds over the next few years, with all its confusion, breakthroughs, mistakes, and unexpected turns. On the first day, you do what almost everyone does. You open ChatGPT. Maybe you've already tried it once or twice to write an email or summarize an article. It feels impressive, but also strangely ordinary. Is this really what everyone has been talking about? Then you keep digging. You discover that AI isn't one tool, it's an entire ecosystem. There are models that write, models that generate images, models that create music, models that analyze spreadsheets, models that help programmers, researchers, designers, marketers, teachers, doctors, and engineers. Every hour, someone online claims they've found the next revolutionary tool. Every other hour, someone says that tool is already obsolete. Within a few hours, excitement gives way to something else. Overwhelm? You realize there are thousands of tutorials, endless opinions, and almost no agreement about where to begin. One person says you need to learn prompting. Another insists you should study machine learning. Someone else says automation is the future. Another says coding is essential. Suddenly, learning AI feels less like entering a classroom and more like walking into the world's biggest library without a map. And that's the first surprise. The hardest part isn't learning AI. It's deciding what not to learn. Most beginners spend their first few days chasing every new trend they see. Every viral post feels urgent. Every new release seems like the one that will change everything. But something quietly shifts when you stop asking, "What's the newest tool?" and start asking a different question. What problem am I actually trying to solve? That question changes everything, although you don't realize it yet. By the end of the first week, the mystery starts fading. You begin to understand that modern AI isn't magic, it's prediction. These systems generate likely answers based on patterns they've learned from enormous amounts of data. That doesn't mean they're always correct. In fact, they can sound remarkably confident while being completely wrong. At first, that's disappointing. Then it becomes empowering because now you know something important. AI isn't replacing your judgment, it's demanding it. You start experimenting instead of spectating. You compare answers. You ask follow-up questions. You test different instructions. You notice that tiny changes in how you frame a question can completely transform the response. But another misconception quietly disappears. Prompting isn't the whole game. The internet often makes prompting sound like a secret language. In reality, it's only one piece of a much larger skill set. The people getting remarkable results usually aren't using magical prompts. They're defining problems clearly, providing context, checking outputs, and improving the process over time. Their thinking. AI simply gives their thinking more leverage. That's a subtle difference, but it's one that separates casual users from people who keep improving. A month passes almost without you noticing. AI has become part of your daily routine. Instead of staring at a blank page before writing, you brainstorm with it. Before tackling a complicated topic, you ask it to explain the fundamentals. When you read something confusing, you ask for another perspective. You summarize meetings faster. You organize ideas more quickly. You even use AI to learn subjects that have nothing to do with AI. Here's the unexpected part. You're not becoming dependent. You're becoming faster at learning. Information that once took hours to collect now appears in minutes. But speed creates a new challenge. Since answers arrive so easily, asking better questions becomes far more valuable than collecting more information. You notice yourself slowing down before typing, not because you're uncertain, because you're becoming more intentional. The quality of the answer often depends on the quality of the question. That's not just an AI lesson, it's a thinking lesson. Around the third month, something changes that isn't immediately obvious. Until now, AI has mostly helped you consume information. Now you begin creating with it. Maybe you build a simple automation that saves an hour every week. Maybe you organize research for a side project. Maybe you write cleaner reports, analyze data more efficiently, draft presentations, generate marketing ideas, or get coding assistance that finally helps you understand concepts that once felt intimidating. The projects are small. Nobody is calling them revolutionary, but they solve real problems, and real problems teach lessons that tutorials never can. That's where another myth falls apart. People often imagine AI experts as programmers surrounded by complex algorithms. But many valuable AI users don't spend their days building models. They're accountants reducing repetitive work, designers exploring concepts faster, analysts organizing massive datasets, small business owners improving customer support, operations managers streamlining workflows, teachers creating personalized learning materials. The technology matters, but context matters even more. At this point, you're no longer asking, "What can AI do?" You're asking, "What can AI do here?" That single word, "here," is where value begins. Of course, reality pushes back. Some automations fail, generated code breaks, research contains errors, creative ideas sound repetitive. Occasionally, AI confidently produces something completely incorrect. Earlier, that would have shattered your confidence. Now it teaches you something else. Verification is part of the workflow. You stop treating AI like an oracle. You start treating it like an unusually fast collaborator who still needs supervision. Ironically, trusting AI less often helps you use it better. By the 6th month, the transformation becomes visible to other people before you notice it yourself. Coworkers wonder how you finish certain tasks so quickly. Friends ask which tools you're using. Managers notice that you're solving problems instead of simply completing assignments. Nothing magical has happened. You're still working. You're still thinking. But you've removed friction from dozens of small decisions every day. Minutes become hours. Hours become opportunities. This doesn't guarantee promotions or freelance clients or career breakthroughs. Those outcomes depend on many factors: your existing skills, communication, consistency, industry, geography, and the problems you're able to solve. But one thing becomes difficult to ignore. You have a competitive advantage, not because AI made you smarter overnight, because you've learned how to combine your knowledge with a tool that multiplies your effectiveness. That distinction matters. Someone using AI without understanding their field often produces average work faster. Someone who understands their field deeply can produce exceptional work more efficiently. The tool amplifies what already exists. Then comes the first full year. This is where many people quietly disappear, not because AI stopped improving, because the excitement wore off. The people chasing hype move on to the next trend. They spent months collecting tools instead of building skills. But if you've stayed consistent, something remarkable has happened. You've stopped obsessing over individual apps. New tools appear every week, some disappear just as quickly, and you no longer panic every time another headline announces the next breakthrough, because you've learned something more durable than software. You've learned principles, how to define problems, how to evaluate outputs, how to collaborate with intelligent systems, how to identify tasks worth automating, and those that still demand human creativity, empathy, experience, or critical judgment. Most importantly, you've learned where AI fails. It struggles with ambiguity. It reflects biases in its training data. It can fabricate information. It lacks genuine understanding, even when its responses sound convincing. Recognizing those limitations isn't a weakness. It's part of becoming genuinely skilled. Around this time, another realization quietly changes your direction. Knowing AI isn't enough. Knowing something else becomes even more valuable. A marketer who understands AI often outperforms someone who only understands AI. An engineer who learns AI gains new capabilities. A lawyer, architect, scientist, teacher, or entrepreneur who combines deep domain knowledge with AI begins approaching familiar challenges from completely different angles. The future doesn't belong to people who memorize every tool. It belongs to people who can connect technology with real-world problems. That's harder, but it's also much more resilient. Then 2 years pass, maybe 3. Looking back, it's almost funny what you worried about on day 1. You thought learning AI meant mastering software. Instead, it became an exercise in learning how to learn. The projects you build are more ambitious now. Maybe you've created internal automations for your workplace. Maybe you assist with software development using AI as a coding partner rather than a replacement. Perhaps you analyze business data more effectively, improve marketing campaigns through experimentation, support design workflows, optimize operations, or launch a small business where AI handles repetitive tasks while you focus on strategy and relationships. The opportunities are real, so are the limits. Some people discover entirely new careers, others simply become much better at the careers they already had. Outcomes vary widely because people start from different places, practice with different levels of consistency, and apply AI to different industries. There isn't one finish line. There never was. But the deepest transformation has almost nothing to do with technology. When faced with a difficult problem, your first instinct is no longer to search endlessly for answers. You break the problem into pieces. You experiment, you iterate, you test assumptions, you ask sharper questions. You collaborate with people and with AI. In other words, you've changed the way you think. Curiosity replaced fear. Adaptability replaced certainty. Continuous learning replaced the illusion that education ever truly ends. That's the part nobody tells beginners. The biggest benefit of learning AI isn't memorizing commands or collecting tools. It's developing a mindset that remains valuable even as today's tools become tomorrow's history. Because they will. The interfaces will change. The models will improve. Entire platforms will disappear. New ones will emerge. If your knowledge is tied to one application, you'll constantly feel behind. If your knowledge is built on principles, you'll keep adapting. And adaptation has always been one of humanity's greatest competitive advantages. So let's return to the question we started with. What happens if you decide to learn AI today? You probably won't become an expert overnight. You probably won't automate your entire life. You probably won't wake up 6 months later with a completely different career. What you might gain is something far less dramatic and far more powerful, a new way of approaching problems, a faster way of learning, a deeper understanding of how human judgment and machine intelligence can work together instead of competing against each other. Years from now, when people look back at this era, they may not remember which AI tool was the most popular. They may barely remember the names at all. But they'll remember the people who learned how to adapt while everyone else was arguing about whether adaptation was necessary. And in the end, that may turn out to be the most important lesson AI ever had to teach.